Ready?
Yeah, I think we're ready. All right, I'm going to call the Lake County Board of Elections and Registration Board meeting of April 15th to order. If you could all please rise if you're able for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you and welcome everyone. Michelle, if you could please take roll call. Present.
Michael Mellon.
I am here.
Present.
Board Member Mark Candelaria Reardon. Present. And
I am here. Note for the record, we have a quorum. I want to welcome our newest board member, Mark Candelaria Reardon, report. Congratulations and welcome.
Go.
All right. Also, I do want to recognize we have both chairmen here today. So hello to Chairman Niemeyer, hello to Chairman Repace, and welcome. Approval of minutes is the next.
Yeah.
That's right. See how they did that? On my
Lots
right,
of
on my
right.
left. Yeah.
So any disagreements we have, you guys will settle with an arm wrestling? Is that how we're going to do this today?
Or a one-man potato sack race.
Next matter of on the agenda is approval of the minutes. I'll entertain a motion to approve the March 18th and March 25th minutes.
Motion to approve, Mr. Chair.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Clerk Brown, seconded by Mr. Mellon to approve the minutes. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Next matter of business on the agenda is old business. Election equipment bid process. It's indicating no major updates. Jessica, is that accurate? Okay. And complaint tracking procedure, no major updates. All right, thank you. If there's any questions for our staff regarding either of those matters by the board. Okay, hearing none, we'll move on. The next is complaint 2024-10, which is entitled Justice versus Allende, if I'm saying that correct. If I am or not. Allende, thank you, sir. All right, do we have the complainant or petitioner here, Ms. Justice?
You weren't there. You should
Hi.
have that.
Come on up. And then also, Mr. Allende, you're here with Mr. Biss, I believe, as your representative. Ms. Justice, if you could come over this side, please. And then Mr. Allende, you're here with Mr. Biss. Okay, let me just set the record. And just ask the parties if they have any other potential witnesses that they're going to have with them today. Anybody that wants to testify on your behalf? No? Okay. All right. So if you could just, you two could just please raise your right hand so I can swear you in. Do you swear the testimony you're about to give us will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? I do. I'll show you both duly sworn. Just for the record, I just want to place on the record that I do have before me a complaint form that is dated November 5th, 2024, on the name of Madison Justice. It lists the respondent as Jason Allende, and she's also included an email. We have notice to Mr. Allende dated January 2nd. I think we had a subsequent notice based on failure to attend by the parties, and we're here today for that. Ms. Justice, do you have anything besides your email that you'd like to present to the board? And you're obviously you're going to get a chance to speak.
yeah, that's it.
Okay, the email. And then I understand that we also have a recording by Ms. Justice that's been given to the attorneys for the board.
Michelle Happen is able to, or Jessica Happen, and can play it if the board likes. It wasn't attached with the complaint.
Okay,
So Officer Allende hasn't received it prior.
okay. So Mr. Biss, you don't have a copy of that.
I do not, unaware of that until just now.
All right, so I want to make sure you are aware of it. So now you are, and obviously we want to get you a copy of that. And then I think, Mr. Biss, I'll ask you the same thing. Do you have any other documents that you want to present to the board or any testimony outside of Mr. Allende's?
Just for the record, was retained as of yesterday, so fairly new to me, didn't have enough time to assemble witnesses. I do have a picture of the shirt at issue in case that's relevant. That would be the only additional item that I would want to reserve based upon the fact that I've just learned that there is a recording I was unaware of to continue this hearing to a future date if necessary to bring rebuttal witnesses. So.
Okay, I know that there's been some difficulty getting everybody here. And if it's not, I think I remember somebody from the Cedar Lake Democratic Party coming and indicating that Ms. Justice works out of town. Is that accurate? Okay, and where do you work currently?
It's a company in Wisconsin.
Wisconsin.
I'm there and I'm here at different times. So the last 2 times I was up in Wisconsin.
Okay,
To be fair, I don't believe it's a recording of the incident. It's a recording of,
Is it my
Justice
voicemail?
reporting, yes, a voicemail reporting the incident to the election board.
Oh,
but-
It's not a contemporaneous recording or anything of that nature. It would actually be similar to the complaint.
got it.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I don't know, even if it did record the incident necessarily, I mean, I don't know, like, if, what we're trying to determine is whether or not electioneering was taking place, okay? Whether or not electioneering is taking place, I don't know that the video itself would even potentially reveal that. Now, there's also an argument, there was an argument that took place and there was some rude and there was some curt behavior that took place. Now that, it may show something along those lines, but I don't know that that necessarily rises to the level of an election law violation. So, I mean, I'm not sure what the video is, and I don't know that I want to postpone this anymore. We've been
But
kicking
it's
this
a
down.
video, it's a tape recording, right? It's an
Voicemail.
audio voicemail that was saved of a report reporting the incident itself, right?
When was it, what's the date of it?
It is election day.
Okay.
The way it's all came about, I forgot all about it. I was checking my voicemails, but it said I couldn't leave voicemail for something else, leaving them out, and it said I had 5 in there from election day. Some were just problems with machines and so forth, like report 1 in.
Okay,
And then it was just her calling in.
to report the incident, and it was done on election day.
I believe it was like 8:23 a.m., somewhere in that vicinity. Election day, it appeared she stepped outside, maybe because of her wind blowing a little bit. She probably just stepped outside the doors right there, maybe she was making a phone call to us. She reported to let us know what was going on.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I mean, if she's going to report what took place, she's under oath.
Yeah.
It's the same level, so let's just eliminate that.
Well, let me ask you this
Mr.
real quick.
Reed.
Just, like you talked about the lawyer brain kicking in. If we're gonna listen to it, I think Mr. Vish should get the opportunity to listen to it, even if it's a few minutes. Determine if it's objectionable or not on any level. And if it isn't, it isn't. I just don't like the idea of, sort of trial by ambush.
Yeah, I wasn't implying that we were gonna. play.
Yeah, if we are gonna play, you should get an opportunity.
I guess I would-
Even if.
No,
it's
if
for a few
we're going to
minutes.
play, we should postpone and give them an opportunity to
Yeah,
do
so,
whatever they need to do.
Ms. Justice, do you have any intention on needing to play the voicemail? Or do you want it, or just go by what, you can tell the board what happened?
Can do whatever's easy for you guys.
Okay.
I really don't, doesn't matter.
I guess they go, make a suggestion.
Mr. Tolbert, yeah.
Just don't rely on it, just like, I know this is not a
Right.
court of law,
It's not.
but it's a little late in the game, and what a judge would do is just not allow that to be heard or be considered in evidence.
Yeah, and that's where I'm leaning.
I'm fine with that.
Kind of what
I think that's what we're all kind of,
Yeah, that's where I'm leaning, and that's why I just want to at least allow the petitioner the opportunity to tell us, oh, it's important to my case, I do want it to be heard, or I don't care. It sounds like she's fine with us not playing it, which is great. Okay. So, Mr. Viss, with the decision, I guess, of the board to not play it, and the petitioner not necessarily, I don't think she indicated she cared one way or the other, I think we're just going to proceed.
No objection to
All
that.
right. Okay, so, Ms. Justice, you have, yes, we swore him in, yep. You have the floor kind of to explain exactly what happened that day. Could you start with what your position is and maybe how long you've been performing those duties on election day?
For election day, that was my first time being inspector. I had just gotten called in, I think, the Saturday before election day, because they were down one. So went to the training, they had said, if anything happens, please report it to us. We want you to report it. On election day, it was obviously very busy. I was sitting with my group of people and workers, and one of my judges had come up and pointed out that there was somebody wearing election memorabilia, and because it was it had a name of someone on the ballot, I approached him and asked him if he could please flip his shirt inside out or go get a jacket from the car, cover it up if he could, and he said I wasn't gonna do that. I said, you have to do that. You can't wear that in here. Nobody that's on the ballot. You can't wear anything. Doesn't matter what party, anything like that. And he was like, what are you gonna do about it? I said, I can call the police, I can call county. And he started yelling and said, I am the police and pulled out his police badge and put it in my face. So that was uncomfortable.
You can take a minute if you want. Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask a question?
Yes, no, as long as Ms. Justice is ready to answer, I want to give her a chance to.
Right, I just gotta give her a chance. I figured we could listen to the question, help
Sure.
her kind of compose herself a little bit. So when you approached them, did you identify yourself as an election worker, or did you have a badge or a lanyard or anything like that? And did you say, hey, look, what was your position again?
Inspector.
Inspector, yeah. You say I'm the inspector for the polling place and anything along those lines?
No,
Okay.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
I think I just asked, can you please change the
Yeah,
shirt?
can you sure? Yeah, I
You
get
had like a lanyard with a,
I just had a badge like
Okay.
on my shirt that had my name and I think it said inspector on it too.
and that Michelle, and Justice, that on election day, what do those look like? I know I've seen them, but I know they're prominent.
That say the position inspector, you gotta be the clerks, and then they usually look like their first meeting.
It's not like hidden or, it's not tiny. I think it's like a legit, okay. All right. So
Was
that's
it-
something maybe wouldn't notice.
Did you feel that you properly let Mr. Alande know that you were an election official? Like, did you have your badge on?
I had it right,
Okay.
yeah. I didn't physically say I'm the inspector for this township, but it was labeled right there.
Okay. And then, okay, and so I think you were explaining that he had pulled out his badge, said, I am the law, and put it in your face and was yelling at you. All right, okay, what happened after that?
After that, I was like, okay, I'm gonna call county, and I just walked away, grabbed my phone, got county on the phone, and I don't know what happened because I was facing the other way, but I think everybody was paying attention at that point because it was loud and the other inspector had come up. I was on the phone at this time, but the other inspector had come up and I think just asked him to change his shirt. And she knew him, so he flipped his shirt right there. And she came up to me and said, I just got him to change his shirt. I know who he is, like, everything's fine.
Okay.
But at that point I was on the phone, so I don't know who I was talking to. It's probably just the first person that picked up, but I had called that off and I was just like, okay, I'll report later after I talk to someone else, I guess. So I think that was
Was it?
probably it.
Okay,
So, Mr. Chairman.
and, yeah, Mr. Mullin.
So a question, so in the end, there's kind of two stories here to me. One is electioneering. And are you saying that, so he was notified that he was electioneering, that he had a shirt that displayed a candidate's name who was on the ballot.
Mhm.
You asked him to remove it, switch it, do whatever. He initially replied no to you, but then when he spoke to somebody that he recognized, he then complied with that.
Mhm.
Okay, the other aspect is kind of I guess the tone of the overall thing, maybe sort of like, abusive language is what you're kind of claiming here, is that you're saying that he was sort of attacking you verbally during this process.
Yeah, he was cussing and like, I'm not effing doing that. I am the effing police.
Gotcha.
I believe I don't know if he called me any names after that, but
Did you feel intimidated?
Yeah.
yes,
You felt intimidated? Did you
Yeah.
feel that he was being aggressive towards you?
yes, I was scared.
And you said he put it in your face. How close was the badge to your face?
I don't know, like out of your pocket and like, I don't know. I was pretty close to him, so
But not slammed against your face. Yeah.
like that. It
Yeah,
wasn't like,
okay. Okay. So your complaints, I guess your complaint had the second part of the event, sort of the uncomfortable aspect of it, not taken place, would you have filed the complaint of electioneering?
probably not.
Okay.
I think the language and everything that had occurred to me was reportable.
Right.
That's why I reported it.
I understand. Thank you.
Any other questions of Mr.
Yeah,
Alves?
after,
Brown.
yeah, after the other person spoke to him and he calmed down and, did what he had to do, did you still feel intimidated or was everything just kind of smooth over?
I wasn't really like worried about that. I was just like, worried about what was gonna happen. I think I was fine at that point, just he's gonna move along in the line and get to the voting machine, and once he gets out of here like that, we're good. And after that, I think it was okay, but
Have you worked other elections besides this one?
yeah,
Okay, just never as an inspector?
no.
What other positions have you held?
I've been a judge and I've also been the poll pad person. I can't think of what that one is, but clerk. Yeah, thank you.
Yes, Mr. Rubin.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you, when you left to make the phone call, were you aware that he was complying to you? He was not complying, and that's why you made the complaint originally? Is that how it occurred?
Hmm.
Okay, yes.
Yeah.
And do you believe that your training that you had, either as clerk or judge or inspector, that you were using that training to let him know that you couldn't have a person that's in the ballot inside the polling place or in the chute?
Hmm.
Yes?
Yeah.
Okay. And do you believe that he was, at the time that he had the shirt on, violating what you understood the law to be?
Yes.
Okay, and is that why you warned him?
Yes.
And he did not comply with you, is that correct?
Correct.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Reed?
can you,
Yeah, Mr. Reed.
just as to this particular polling place, where was the entrance to the polling place and where was the chute? If you can describe it to us.
Okay, so the building at the front doors, there's like a long hallway that leads into like a bigger room.
Okay.
And there was a line out the door and like wrapped inside for the polling place, like lines of people to vote.
So
And-
let me ask you this, the room that the voting machines were in, the door into that room,
Mhm.
is that where you started? Is that where the ropes were started and then extended back?
They were started at the entry door
And then back outside.
and then back outside.
So they were at, I just want to make sure I get this straight. The entry door to the room where the machines were, not the entry door to the
Not
building.
that door, the entry door to the building.
So the chute started
little
at the
concerned
entry
about
door to, yeah, that's another issue.
Yeah.
But the entry door to the building is where the chute started. At least for, I'm sorry, where the rope started.
I think so, yes.
And was it, based on what he told you, did he say anything to the effect of, I'm not doing that, I'll do it when I get in the chute? Or did he just say, I'm not doing that?
Well,
He said, I'm not doing that. And he was in at the entry door to the room.
Okay.
So
So when he,
we didn't see him in line at that point. One of my judges, like he had, if this was like where the door opens off into the rear, he had been standing on the corner of like the door
all right, so
where she had noticed him.
So just to be clear here, when you approached him and he said these things to you and he refused to comply with what you requested, he was just outside the door to the voting room
Correct.
in the
It
building.
was
You were
in
not
the
outside.
building, correct.
Okay.
Correct.
that's a problem.
Even if the chute was in the wrong place.
Yeah, he's in the chute.
He's in the shoe.
Yeah,
Yes.
he's not in the room.
Not in the room.
He's in the chute. Okay. All right, I don't have any further questions of Ms. Justice. However, I want to make sure the rest of the board, if they have any other further questions, Ms. Justice.
I do not.
Okay. Mr. Viss, do you have any questions of Ms. Justice?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, Ms. Justice, thank you for your service. I served as an inspector in 2008 at a polling place in Hammond, and I attempted to enforce the gentleman to take off the Pedro button. And much to my mirth and surprise, he said, "This is a movie that you're trying to enforce. It's not for a particular candidate." So that is my inspector story from many years ago, but thank you for your service. A couple of questions. So that I understand, this was the first time that you have been called into service as an inspector, correct?
Correct.
And the training that you received was on that Saturday beforehand, correct? So this was new to you,
This
the
was
inspector.
new. But I'd worked several elections before, so I kind of had a bit of a sense of what to look for and stuff like that. But yeah,
And I recognize you. It's the Knights of Columbus right on 41. It's my voting spot.
yeah.
So on that particular morning, did you have any others that day where you had to approach someone and encourage them to remove a hat or to remove a button or anything?
just one person.
Okay.
She was wearing a sweatshirt that had his name on it. She didn't know, so she went outside, took the sweatshirt off and put it in her car.
So you approached her to ask her to change it.
Yes,
And is that standard procedure as to how you've been taught to give someone an opportunity to take off that article of clothing?
yes.
And what's your understanding of what constitutes electioneering?
If it has their name on it,
Okay.
anybody on the ballot's name, it can say the slogan, if that's what I've heard. That's what I learned in training, but as long as if their name is on it, then they can't wear it.
Okay, so the name of the candidate,
The
correct?
name of the candidate, yeah.
Okay. And as I review this email, this was an email that you sent the following morning. Is that accurate, your submission to the board?
It was the same day,
It was the same day?
yes.
Okay.
I show it dated Tuesday, November 5th at 10:11 a.m.
Okay. So sent later that morning.
Correct.
Okay, would you have sent it from your cell phone?
Yes.
Okay, all right. So this was sent fairly quickly after the incident happened. It was fresh in your memory.
Hmm.
Yes?
Yes,
Okay. So when I go to the second line, it says, I approached him and asked him if he could go to the bathroom and flip his shirt inside out or go grab a jacket from the car and zip it up. That's accurate?
correct,
And at that point, you hadn't made eye contact.
correct,
Excuse me. You next state, he said, I'm not doing that, and continued looking at his phone and would not look at me. That's accurate. So up to this point, he's not made eye contact, he's not turned and looked at you, correct? So at this
He
point,
might have looked at me when I walked up and then pulled his phone out. I'm not sure, but at that point, he was not.
okay. But to say, to this point, you don't recall if he looked at you,
Correct,
looked at your face, looked at your chest area where you would have been labeled as an inspector, correct?
correct,
Okay. And you never identified yourself as, my name is Miss Justice, I'm the inspector for this whole area.
no,
Okay, all right. So at this point, be fair to say, he doesn't know if the voice is coming from a neighbor that doesn't like him.
I guess that's fair.
He doesn't know if it's coming from a Kamala Harris supporter, correct?
He doesn't know that,
He doesn't know if it's coming from someone that's supporting an independent candidate, correct?
correct,
Okay, so at this point, the two of you are talking to each other, but not looking at each other and knowing who each other are, correct?
mm-hmm,
Yes?
yes,
Okay. So then you continue, you indicate to him, quote, he, meaning Trump, is on the ballot, and any item of clothing that has a name or a picture cannot be worn inside of the voting place, correct?
correct,
Okay. But you didn't indicate to him that this is state law. You're just telling him you can't do this, correct?
I don't think I said it was state law, but I said he cannot do this.
Okay. And again,
You cannot wear this in the polling place,
he doesn't know if it's coming from a Joe Johnson supporter. This correct?
correct,
You then express to him, he gets to have his voice heard when he gets to the voting machine. And he raised his voice and said, what are you going to do about it? Correct?
yes.
Okay. At this point, you still haven't made eye contact.
I think at that point, he has finally put his phone away and looked at me.
Okay.
It was that initial, like, he was still pretty calm when he would not lift his eyes from his phone.
And you said you could call the police, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And that's when he took out his
He
wallet?
said I can call the police and I can call county, and that's when he pulled out
Okay.
the badge.
When he pulled out his badge and showed it to you, he didn't say, don't call the police, did he?
He said, go ahead, call the police. I am the effing police.
Okay. But he wasn't telling you to not call the police, correct?
Correct.
He was okay with you calling the police.
I don't know that. I don't
Okay.
know that.
Did you record his badge number when he opened up his wallet?
No,
Okay. So when you came back inside after making the phone call, that's when you observed that he had flipped his t-shirt over, correct?
I was still in the room when I made the phone call. I had just turned away to go towards my table,
Okay.
and the other inspector that had gotten him to change his shirt, she came up to me and she like touched my shoulder and said, hey, I got him to flip his shirt inside out.
Okay. Did you know who he was at that point?
No,
Okay. So within 2 hours of this incident occurring, I think there was evidence put in the record that there was a voicemail left with Lake County Election Board at approximately 8:34. Within 2 hours, you sent this email, correct?
correct.
Okay. Who did you learn from that his name was Jason Alande?
The other inspector,
Okay. Who did you learn from his badge number?
I'm not sure.
Did you text someone in this room?
No,
Did you text anyone in this room?
no.
So how did you learn his badge number?
I think it was somebody else. I think it was Tracy Haskell. He had.
Mr. Chairman,
found out-
what's the relevance of that question? I'm not understanding the relevance of how she learned his badge number.
But my relevance is that within less than 2 hours of this incident happening, not only is there a description of what it is, but it's who he is, and then there's a specific depiction that it's a police officer and his badge number.
So
what's wrong
again,
with
what's wrong with that? That's a great way to identify an individual.
Right, but my question in particular is this being exacerbated or inflamed because of who he is? And once she alerted somebody as to who he was.
Well, I mean, I think she learned who he was when showed her the badge, that he was a police officer.
But she-
Now, then whether or not she tracked that down, I don't see, Mr. Chairman, any relevance to that
All
question.
right, why don't you just go ahead and ask the next question?
We can continue, that's okay. I'm just trying to learn, because that just struck me as odd that this would be said.
Yeah, I just don't know what it implies to anyone here.
Okay. So afterwards, his shirt was turned inside out, is that correct?
Yes,
Okay, and from what I understand, that day, there was one other lady who you approached, correct?
correct,
And you requested that she flip her shirt inside out or take it off?
correct.
And that's an opportunity that you give to everyone, correct?
Yes,
Okay. And if they comply with that opportunity, then you don't submit a charge against them for electioneering, correct?
correct.
I've got no other questions.
Thank you, Mr. Viss. Any questions of Ms. Justice based upon the questions of Mr. Viss?
Could you said,
Mr. Reed.
I believe you said, ma'am, who you might have gotten the badge number from, and you said a Tracy Haskell.
Mhm.
I know the court reporter, I don't know if you got that name, but who is Tracy Haskell?
I don't know like a specific job title, but she's always gotten me and my sisters to work for the election.
Okay.
So
And was she part of that board?
she wasn't, not that specific one. I know she was in that polling place. Like her voting location was also in that polling place. So she was there that morning, to vote. But, and since she's gotten us to vote or to work for the elections, I had just reached out to her
Trust me, it is.
and that, yeah.
Okay,
All right,
that's
thank
all,
you.
that's all.
Thanks. All right, any other questions of Ms. Justice then? Okay, Ms. Justice, outside of that, I think you mentioned you don't have any documents and you don't have any other witnesses.
Correct.
Okay, all right, Mr. Viss, if you want to present any testimony, you can do that.
Yes. And would you like me to take my client through it? Would you like me to present it? What's preferred from the board?
I think whatever we can get through, however you like it, it's fine by us. Just keep moving along. And
Okay. So I think, I appreciate it. Number one is, there's been reference that this has been deferred, 2 meetings. I've taken a look at the letter that my client received, and I want to apologize on behalf of my client. One of the things that he does in his vocation as an officer is deliver subpoenas. And he clearly knows the difference between you are ordered to appear versus you are requested to appear. And in the 1-page sheet that my client received in January and in February, it doesn't indicate that he's being charged with something. It just says you're requested to attend. So it wasn't until there was a subpoena that was submitted that my client understood, no, you're obligated to be here. So perhaps that's something that can be changed down the road in these letters that are sent out, but the letter does indicate you're requested.
Well,
Mr. Mellon.
And he was requested. Now, most people in this situation, they contact us, they say, why am I being requested to appear before us? Because there's a certain level of respect for the board, and what the board does. In this situation, he chose not to follow that path. And so we went with, and so you're right, you're not penalized in any way, shape or form for denying our request. But now we issue the subpoena because now we're mandating it. So, I mean, it was an odd behavior. I will give you that.
Yeah.
And
No,
I was going to say, as an officer apparently of the law, I don't know if that's who he is yet, but I'm sure that we're going to get to that. You know, I think that he understands that about proceedings, he understands about official proceedings, and probably would at least, I would think most people would say, I better call down there and see what's going on. But he didn't, and that's okay, and I appreciate the explanation between requested and required, but.
Sure. No, and I think most people don't understand the difference between the two of them. I mean, I've got a lot of clients that are requested to go meet with juvenile officers after they get an underage ticket. They don't know that is, it's not mandatory.
I think let me just ask staff real quick. Do we also include a copy of the complaint? We do, okay. So he was notified of the complaint, knew it, there was a
Yep.
complaint, was requested to appear and.
I just want to share that on the record.
Twice, but he's
Yep.
here now. All right.
All right, can you please state your name for the record?
Jason Dana,
And Mr. Alandi, what do you do for a living?
police officer for Cedar Lake Police Department.
And how many years have you served in that vocation?
Total 24.
And prior to that, what did you do for an occupation?
I worked for a construction company.
Okay, I want to take you to November 5, 2024. Like many other Americans, did you take opportunity to vote on that day?
Yes, I did.
Okay, and where was your voting booth?
The Knights of Columbus off of Wicker Avenue.
Okay, and when you recall approximately what time you entered that voting area that day?
I'm not 100%. It had to have been around 8 o'clock or so.
Okay.
I'm guessing
Long lines?
the long lines.
Okay, and were you wearing any paraphernalia that would have attached you to any particular candidate, one towards another?
Yes, I was. I wore a shirt that said Trump, Make America Great Again.
Okay, dark blue?
Yes.
Okay, were you aware of any prohibitions that restricted you from wearing the name of a candidate when you went to vote?
No, I had no idea.
Okay, in your 24 years of serving as an officer, you've never been called to a voting booth to enforce anything?
No,
In any of your training, you've never encountered anything like that?
no,
Okay, do you recall seeing any signs in didn't ask you how old you were, but in your years of voting that restrict you from wearing a shirt like that?
no, I didn't see anything.
Okay, so as you waited in line, can you please share with the board what happened next?
Long line, was sitting there messing around on my phone and then, I had somebody come up to my left shoulder and say, you can't wear that shirt. You need to take that shirt off.
Okay, and at this point, had you seen this person?
No, I was just paying attention to my phone.
Was it a female voice, a male voice?
Female voice.
Okay, and what happened next?
After that, I said, I'm not gonna do that. She said, you can't wear that. You're gonna have to go into the bathroom, take off the shirt or cover it or put a sweatshirt on. I said, I'm not gonna do that.
Let me stop you there. At this point, had the voice, the person identified themselves as to who they were?
No,
Okay, they hadn't stated their name?
no,
They hadn't stated that they were a poll inspector,
no,
a poll watcher?
no,
At this point, did you know who this person may be?
no,
Okay, you didn't know if they were a Kamala Harris supporter,
no, I have
a
no
Joe
idea.
Johnson supporter, anyone?
I have no idea.
Okay, you just want to be left alone at this point?
Yes.
Okay, all right, what happened next?
She asked me again to remove my shirt or flip it inside out. I told her I wasn't gonna do that. I wasn't paying any attention to her. I wouldn't look at her. I just kept staring, looking forward. And then she said that she was gonna call the police. I said, you can go ahead and call the police. I pulled out my wallet. I went like this. I said, I am the police. Call
Okay, so at this point, you weren't saying, don't call the police.
them. No,
You were welcoming a phone call to the
Yes.
police. At this point, you didn't understand what the issue was. Is that accurate?
100% accurate.
Okay. At this point, had you seen her face or anything on her body that demonstrated to you that she was acting in an official capacity?
No, I didn't want to make any kind of eye contact or start any kind of issue. I just wanted to be left alone.
Okay. So after you showing to her that you were the police, did you put your wallet back in your pocket?
Yes.
What happened next?
She walked away. I kind of looked at her and saw that it was a younger female from behind. And then my neighbor came walking up to me and I knew that she was working the polls and she goes, Jay, you can't wear that. Turn it inside out. I said, I had no idea. Does she work here? She said, yes. I said, I'm sorry. And I flipped it inside out. I said, tell her I'm sorry.
Okay. And what happened next? Anything else beyond that?
I waited in line for the next half an hour or so, voted and left.
Okay. All right. When you think back, if she would have introduced herself as a poll inspector, would your response have been different?
100%.
And how would your response have been different?
I would have went and changed my shirt or covered it or did whatever she wanted. I did not know she worked there and I didn't know that I couldn't wear that shirt.
Okay. As you think back on that situation, you want to apologize to Ms. Justice for any intimations that she may have experienced from you?
110% I did raise my voice and I apologize for that 100%. I got to the point where I was getting upset and I should have never raised my voice. It was inappropriate.
At that point, it was your perception that she was someone that stood for an opposing viewpoint. That's what you believe?
That's what I believed. I never had somebody come up and tell me I have to take my shirt off. I had no idea.
Okay, no further questions.
All right, does the board have any questions of Mr. Alande?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Clerk Brown?
I can appreciate your apology to the young lady at this time, and I'm sure respect for you for the service as a police officer. My father served as a police officer in the 70s. The thing that I'm concerned about is the raising of the voice, because as an officer, generally, if someone raises the voice to you, you act on that. Am I right? You tell them to calm down.
I'm sorry?
Can you hear me? Okay. I said, the thing I'm concerned about is the raising of the voice. When you raise the voice to her, I'm saying in your capacity, you're saying you didn't want to be bothered, but in your capacity as a professional, as a police officer, people raise their voice to you on a regular basis?
Yes.
Yes, and you tend to calm the situation down, right?
Yeah.
Right, okay, good. So even though you didn't know who she was and she asked you to do what she asked you to do, instead of raising your voice, that you consider just kind of have a conversation with her to find out why she asked you that? In my experience as a precinct committeeman and a person who goes out to the early voting sites on a regular basis, I'm constantly having to tell people, could you take off the button? Could you take off the hat? Because there is a bit of confusion because you can take your political stuff inside the voting booth, but people do tend to show their support for the person they're voting for. No one has a problem with that. But once you get inside the chute and you're in that area, we train the workers to do just what she did. What she did was within her reason. So all I'm saying to you is, I would suggest in the future, not just you, but anyone else, if someone goes out to vote and someone approaches them and says something, instead of questioning them or speaking in a high tone, because I saw how uncomfortable she was this morning, and that bothered me. I have daughters myself. That, you just speak in the tone that you're professionally known to speak, because in your profession, it's your responsibility to keep things as calm as possible. Am I right?
Correct. I did not raise my voice at the beginning. It took several times of her telling me what to do to the point where I raised my voice to leave me alone. I raised my voice to show her I don't want to be engaged in that kind of conversation.
Well, I can respect that you didn't want to be engaged. The issue was not about the conversation. It was about what you had on and the fact that it was her responsibility and her job to ask you to just simply, do what your neighbor had you do. Real simple, nothing more than that. And as I say, I'm constantly doing elections, whether they're municipal or national elections. People have the right to show their support for who they support. That's not the issue. But in this Constitution, when you get into that area of voting, we also have the right to respect everyone's rights by not displaying that and waiting until you get behind the booth to do what you want to do.
If I would have known she worked there, then it would have been a different situation. I had no idea.
So I don't disagree with you about you did not know. What I'm saying to you is it would have been nice to engage with her after she made the comment to you to find out who she was and why she made the comment. Even though in your opinion, you probably said in your years of being a professional that you hadn't engaged in that situation as a police officer. I can respect that as well. But when someone else is speaking to you and they are in charge at that particular time, it's our responsibility to kind of step back and kind of work with them. That's all I'm saying.
Any other questions of Mr. Alande? Ms. Reardon, yes.
Yes, I'm wondering, Mr. Alande, thank you, by the way, for your service. I know that you have a difficult job. And would you say it's a 24/7 job?
If I leave the house, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
if I'm not at home, which I.
Right. So as a police officer, you're held to a certain standard of behavior. Do you think that that your interaction with this poll worker met that standard that you hold yourself to professionally?
Yes.
So when you whipped out your badge, that was to educate and inform and not intimidate?
No, I opened up my badge and I didn't whip it out. I didn't throw it in anybody's face. I opened it up because I said I am a police officer, not to show I'm not lying about being a police officer. Go ahead and call the police. if that's what you want.
And you were engaging her with that at that time, and you never saw the sticker that said inspector on her lapel?
No.
And in the 30 minutes after you decided to change your shirt, you didn't have an opportunity to apologize to the inspector for your behavior that you regretted? Once you found out she worked there?
I just wanted to get done and out of there. Wanted to vote and leave.
Thank you.
Any other questions, Mr. Alande?
Just to clarify the record.
Mr. Reed.
Understand this. The entire interaction until one of the people that you knew and recognized as the actual poll worker told you, you were not aware in your mind that she was actually working at that point.
100%.
I think your attorney went through this. I just want to make that clear for the record. During the course of that morning, not knowing who that person is, was it your impression that she supported another candidate and was trying to start an argument with you, or was it, what was it? What was your feeling?
That's what I was assuming. That's why I didn't make eye contact. That's why I said I'm not doing that. And I didn't want to interact.
That's all I had.
So are you saying that, I have a couple, I'm sorry, anybody else have any question? No. So you're saying that after you said, go ahead and call the police, I am the law, and you saw her walk back in and you saw her walk back out and she's going in and out of the polling place, you just thought she was some voter going in and out of the?
I'm an object for the record. That's a recharacterization.
All right, let me ask you a couple questions. And did you ever see her after you pulled out your badge and said, go ahead and call the police? Did you ever see her go after that point?
Not that I recall. No, I didn't
Never.
pay attention to it.
Okay. All right, I've got some more questions for you. Have you ever heard of the phrase ignorance of the law is no defense?
Yes.
All right. If you pull me over in Cedar Lake and you pull me over and on my dashboard, just sitting out there in plain view for you, I've got a bag of cocaine. Done that, but just, this is a hypothetical.
I've actually seen this bag. It's huge.
Just trying to think of a really easy example. That's what came to mind. And you say, hey, sir, you can't. Is that cocaine? And I say, yeah, cocaine. And you say, you can't have cocaine in this state. It's against the law, because it is, right? And I say to you, I didn't know that. I didn't know I couldn't have cocaine. Would you still arrest me?
Yes.
All right.
I'm going to object to this line of testimony. It mischaracterizes the standard that's already been set. Go ahead.
I'm going to go ahead.
This is a weird tribunal, but just for the record.
So would you consider that as a police officer, you have a position of authority? And do you expect people to respect that authority when they interact with you? Whether they do or not, I'm sure in today's day and age, you probably don't get the respect you did when you started 24 years ago.
I would hope that.
Yes, you would hope they would, right? And would you also expect that people that are working at a polling place in a position of authority, such as inspector, judge, or clerk, should also get that respect?
Yes.
Was Ms. Justice rude to you at all when she asked you to take it off?
No.
Okay. She did it politely, didn't she?
Yes.
All right. And she also mentioned that you swore at her. Do you remember swearing at her?
I do not remember swearing.
Now, you mentioned that you didn't look up from your phone. At some point, I assume you did.
Yes.
Okay. Is it when you pulled the bag? Go ahead. Tell me when you did.
Once she started walking away, she said she was calling the police.
Mhm.
That's when I turned and looked and saw there was a young lady, and she was walking to my left. And then I just looked up, and then my neighbor come walking up and said, "You can't wear that shirt." And like I said, I knew she worked for the polling place, so I instantly turned it inside out while
All right,
I
well,
was in line.
That seems to be a little contradictory from the testimony earlier, because I think what you said was, and again, please feel free to explain it if you'd like, is that she said, I'm going to call the police, and you pulled your badge out and you said, go ahead and call the police, and you showed it to her. So she wasn't walking away from you at that point. She was right in front of you, correct?
She wasn't in front of me, she was to my left.
Okay, she's to your left, like between what, me and the flag?
Yeah, probably.
Okay, so she's right there. You're looking at her at that point.
So for the record, if we
I'm
can,
gonna
Mr.
say
Chairman,
about
let's
3
stick,
feet.
well, 6 feet between you and the flag, 3 feet between you and your
Wanna lay
outstretched arm.
No, can we agree on 5 feet?
Sure. It's, yeah, let's say somewhere between 3 and 5 feet. All right, and at that point, your testimony here today is you don't see her with the badge.
Yes,
Okay.
because when she said, I'm calling the police, I pulled the badge out of my pocket. I went like this. I said, I am.
Okay.
I went like this.
But do you have I guess just as a fundamental question to you, as a police officer, do you feel that it's appropriate when someone says, I'm going to call the police to pull out your badge and say, go ahead, I am the police?
At that time, that's just how I reacted.
I mean, do you have any issue, just looking back maybe, all right, as you sit here today and reflect?
Yeah.
Do you think that do you want to, as a police officer, do you believe that it's a good idea to just flaunt the authority you have and say to people, members of the public, whether they're an inspector or apparently somebody that you thought may be supporting an opposing candidate, to just kind of say like, do what you want, I am the police? Do you think that's appropriate?
I'm going to object to the characterization of flaunting authority, but go ahead.
Sure.
First question.
No, looking back on it, I wish things would have happened differently. If she would have just walked up and identified herself, this would have never happened.
So so you're saying that because she didn't identify herself, you thought it was okay to pull out your badge and say, go ahead, I am the police?
When she came up and started out with, you need to take the shirt off, I didn't know who she was. I didn't immediately pull out my badge and start saying, I'm the police.
Okay. When you pull over people, do you always come up and say, I am the police?
I'm in a fully marked car and
Sure.
in a uniform, and I introduced myself. I am Corporal Londe, Cedar Lake Police Department. Reason why I pulled you over, so I identify myself.
The reason why I pulled you over, big giant bag of cocaine.
That's right, on my dashboard. Do you feel that you were being, let's say, I'm trying to think of the right word, by not looking up, I just feel like it was almost like you were being dismissive of what she was saying to you. Do you feel like you were being dismissive when she said, hey, you need to turn that inside out?
No, I didn't want to engage with somebody who comes up and starts telling me I can't wear a certain shirt. I
Okay.
didn't know I could not wear that shirt. So why engage with somebody who's right off the bat telling me what I need to do? I didn't,
She wasn't being rude.
no.
Mr. Mellon.
Chairman, we can harbor on this forever. I think there's a lot of weird things that went on here. But the two issues that we're facing overall is electioneering, and then ultimately this, which I'm going to classify as rude, and one could even classify as extremely rude. I think it's hard to believe overall that at some point we didn't see a badge, or we had no idea this person had any level of authority, and we've got a young woman here, and to raise your voice at that. In politics, we're getting more and more complaints like these because there's rude, there's curt, there's horrifying behavior that's taking place. And we're not treating people like we're living in a society anymore. Instead, we're sitting on our phone thinking, well, you can't tell me what to do. I am this, I am that. You shut up. You don't listen to me. I think I know the rules. And the chairman's right. I mean, the fact that you didn't know the rules really has no bearing on anything, in all honesty, whether or not you knew it or not. And as someone who's asking you to do this, I mean, I would assume there'd be some back and forth. So I kind of assumed that there was a knowledge that this may be somebody who's working there. But all that aside, Mr. Chairman, I'm kind of in the middle of something, Mike. I appreciate it. But,
No.
but Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Mellon.
we've dealt with electioneering many, many times, okay? And usually when we refer to the prosecutor's office, it's because there was a flagrant violation. They knew they were violating law and they refused to comply with the law. That is not the case here. Both these parties make the same statement, is that he didn't know that he was supposed to do it. He questioned her, and then when he did find out, he complied. Now, whether or not he should have complied earlier, or he should have complied in a more polite way, that's an entirely debatable issue. But he did comply. So to me, the electioneering discussion is sort of off the table. So I don't see that it arises to an election law violation. Now, there's the absolute and I think unequivocal rudeness that took place. And I think that had you not apologized initially formally on record, I would almost demand that you do, because I think it's crass and it's horrible, and this is what's wrong with society. You know, whether you support the Democrats, the Republicans, or the independents, we all try to act like we're the good guys. But then when reality sets in, we're all the bad guys. We all treat people like this, and we can't sit back and we can't listen to each other. We can't have a civil conversation. We keep our heads down, staring at our phones, telling them, "You can't tell me what to do." And it's a horrible situation, and I hope that the people in this room will rise above it at some point. But Mr. Chairman, I don't see an election law violation, and I would like to make a motion to deny the complaint.
Can I ask you to hold that motion, because I'd like to just finish with the hearing part of it?
Can I?
And although I will entertain it in a little bit,
Sure.
Mr.
You got
Reed,
If I just
and then
want to
Mr.
say, I just
Culver.
want to say my piece real quick.
Yeah.
Mike, I don't mean to.
Yeah, no problem.
And I was going to allow discussion
Yeah.
after the motion if we want to argue the.
I guess, and
right,
I don't know if Mr. Viss or his client have any input on this, but we keep talking about, well, looking down at your phone and not engaging is dismissive or it's rude. I just tell you from personal experience, if someone is saying something, or I can tell they want to start something, the more dismissive I am, the better off this is all going to be. If I look at my phone or I've got something, it's just not important to me. If I look at you and I start engaging, 92% chance it's going to get worse. I would rather just look away and pretend like it didn't happen. That's me. I mean, that's what I'm getting the feeling from him. If he doesn't know who this is and he thinks that someone's supporting someone else, if I were standing, I'm not a huge fan of being told what to do. Just ask my wife. But I just, of course, I always comply. But it's one of those things where the more I
And he did
engage, the more I engage, the more escalated that is going to get. I'm not paying attention to you. Stop talking to me and go away is the impression I'd prefer to give out. So I don't put as much stock in the fact that he didn't engage. Now, but like Mr. Mellon said, the rudeness, if there was cursing, and I have no reason to disbelieve this
Right.
lady, I think that did happen. In my judge of credibility, I think it did. And I think it's terrible. But be that as it may, I just wanted to make the point that I think being dismissive of someone else when they're coming coming after you or telling you to do something that you don't want to do probably is a better way to de-escalate something. But that's just my
All right.
2
Yep.
cents.
I appreciate that. Mr. Tolbert.
Yeah, I guess the only point I wanted to make is, I wanted to make sure that we frame the issues, because I think there's been this has been continued about twice.
All right. I just want to make sure. Do you want to do that now, or do you want to do that once we get the motion? Because I want to make sure that nobody has any other questions of Mr. Alande. Okay, is that okay?
Yeah, that's
All right, good. Yes, Mr. Mellon kind of made an argument, which I'm fine with.
Well, I thought everyone had.
Well, yeah, I didn't really ask if there were any other questions. I asked a
Yeah,
question.
usually
Yeah.
we don't do 2 bites at the end.
Agreed.
Usually get there.
Or none of- I only,
But
I was
this may
telling-
be
I was
different.
telling
This
my
may be
questions. I just want to make sure nobody else did. So does anybody else have any other questions for Mr. Alande of the board? All right. Ms. Justice, do you have any questions of Mr. Alande from the board? All right. Mr. Vitz, do you have any other evidence to present, not argument?
No further evidence.
Okay. Then we'll consider the hearing part of it closed. Mr. Mellon has made a motion, which I will now entertain.
Yeah, my motion was to dismiss the complaint because I don't see a violation of election law. I still, and since I get a second bite at the apple because you thank you.
Well, we're gonna get a second. Let me get a second.
No, I'm still in my
You're
motion.
still making your motion. All right, make your motion.
Yes, no, I make a motion to dismiss the
All
complaint.
right. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All right, a second by Mr. Reed. We have a motion by Mr. Mellon. Discussion, Mr. Tolbert.
The only thing that I wanted to say is I know this has been continued a few times, and I know it's kind of surrounded whether there was electioneering or not. But I know that in the last meeting, it was really 2 issues that I saw when we looked at this complaint from the time that it came in. It wasn't just electioneering. I do respect Mr. Mellon's kind of account of what he believes the issue is, but I believe it's more than just electioneering. There was also a component of obstruction and interference with an election officer. And I think that's really the issue. And I think it rises more to the level of.
Mr. Chairman, and I'm directing this to you, Mike. So I don't, but what I'm failing to see in that is where the obstruction took place, because nobody was prevented from voting and no one's prevented from doing their
Do we have a
job.
citation?
Yeah, that's Indiana Code 314.
And it doesn't provide knowingly obstructs or interferes with an election.
3-4, could I get it again? I'm sorry.
314, 34.
But what aspect of the job would be the obstruction?
My point is, I'm not advocating for either party.
Right.
I'm objective.
No, I know, but
I'm just looking at the fact and looking at the fact that
Yeah.
we have to account for every fact that comes in.
absolutely.
And the knowingly part is, I think Chairman bumped up against it. I don't think you could put yourself in a position of being unknowingly. That's the problem that I have. And I think that, I don't want to give a cocaine example, but if I was driving through.
Nobody be dumb enough to do that.
Let's just say heroin.
If I encountered an officer of any ilk, Gary, Cedar Lake, or any officer, and they said, what are you doing? Because a lot of times officers don't necessarily always identify themselves as, hey, I'm a police officer before they start to inquire. I don't have the benefit of just looking at my phone and being dismissed. I can't put myself in a situation where I don't know who I'm talking to or who I'm addressing. So I'm not advocating one way or the other, but
Yes.
I think there's enough to at least consider whether or not his actions were.
But I just want to get back to that, Mr. Chairman, if we could keep it down a little bit over there. I know, but this is me. It's different. But no, I guess what I'm saying though is, look, I understand what you're saying, and I know, the rudeness, the curtness, there's a lot of weird things that went on during this exchange, and I don't disagree with that. And that's where I believe the apologies are appropriate, and there's a lot of things. I mean, for me, I'd be very apologetic, but the obstruction of her doing her job, so knowingly obstruction, there is always knowingly and not knowingly. You can, so I don't disagree with that.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Oh, but I'm sorry.
I actually,
Sort of in the
Mr.
middle
Mellon
of something.
got the floor.
And I don't think we are,
And by the
we
way,
are not in that.
I agree. I'm sorry about that. Let me just make
Yeah.
a point of order. Let me just make a ruling on that. There's been a motion. It's been properly seconded. We're in discussion from the board. And so we're not taking anything further from the parties. Mr. Mellon has the floor.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so I go back to this notion is I don't see in any way, shape or form that there was any obstruction. What was she prevented from doing her job? There was disagreement, there was discussion, there was rudeness, you can argue all those different things, but the obstruction of the job, and especially with him then eventually complying, I don't see, and if you can help me, I could be missing a nuance here. If there's an aspect of this exchange that created the obstruction, I'd love to hear it. That's why my motion dismisses the complaint in its entirety, because I think that there was no obstruction and there was no electioneering that took place.
I think it prevented her from doing her job.
What was her, what aspect? What?
Well, she wasn't able to correct a voter who was obviously within the chute or the polling place to correct his or her behavior from electioneering, which is what you were trying to do. And there was a separate election officer that actually had to do that.
But the behavior was corrected eventually. Now, whether or not there was influence that perhaps that she had over him in that initial discussion, I don't know. So I don't want to speculate on that aspect. The behavior was corrected. The electioneering that was potentially there was eradicated. So I don't see it. That's me.
That's fair.
Okay.
If I can,
Mr. Reed.
If I can add to that just a little bit, the part that I find telling about that it not being electioneering and it not being someone who wouldn't comply is the moment he was confronted by someone who he knew who the person was, knew that person was a member of the board that day, immediately complied. That tells me if he knew who the person was, he would have complied initially. When you say, well, I didn't know I didn't see the badge, I didn't look. I don't find that disingenuous at all, because the moment he saw someone that he knew was working on that election that day, he complied.
I took that more, and again, I'm listening with my lawyer here. I took that to mean more so it was his neighbor. I think that if it wasn't his neighbor and it was just some other election officer, they would have met the same fate as
That's
this guy.
speculation. I
know
don't,
it's
I
speculation,
don't know
but
that, yeah.
I think it was more so the neighbor being more of a connection.
But I think he made it clear that it was a neighbor and he knew that she worked in that moment.
I think
He
he did.
made that clear when he tested.
Can I have the electioneering statute?
I'm sorry, the code number.
It's,
314,
it's item, 9,
14-3-16, and C would be specifically, knowing isn't an aspect of electioneering, but as far as the board's handling of these matters, and I think very consistent with how Ms. Justice handled this that day, commendably, her first goal was to correct the problem. And typically when a voter does correct the problem, the board has not pursued referral to the prosecutor for electioneering. So as far as the electioneering statute, knowing isn't the aspect of that. Knowing is the aspect of the 3-14-3-4 obstruction of or interference with. That requires knowingly obstructs or interferes with an election officer in the discharge of the officer's duty. The knowing aspect, as I heard it, really doesn't appear to be present. The obstruction aspect doesn't appear to be present. The electioneering did occur. We understand he was in the chute. There may have been some problems potentially, as I heard the facts, with how the chute was designated. But regardless, I think the testimony was clear that when Officer Alande learned from a poll worker who he knew to be a poll worker and he knew had that authority, that he complied.
Yeah, I guess I think there is two components of this, and I just want to make sure I understand the motion. The motion is because there was electioneering didn't rise to the level of an election violation, that we should dismiss the complaint. There is another component of this, which is the obstruction of the interference with or injury to election officer or voter. I don't think in that statute 314-3-4, I don't think there's any question that Ms. Justice was discharging her duties that day. There's no question that she was an election officer that day. So really the focus is on the knowingly part.
Well, no, whether or not there was obstruction that took place. Just because two people have a disagreement or an argument, Mr. Chairman, doesn't mean that they were prevented from doing their job, or that person was knowingly obstructing the voting process.
Well, it doesn't have to be obstructing the voting process. It has to
Or obstructing
obstruct
her from
whether or
doing her
not the
job.
discharge of her duties,
Mr. Chairman,
which she was doing.
if I could just, I apologize for interjecting too
That's
much,
okay.
but
I'll
you know,
finish my summary in a bit.
I know, you know how I love you.
It's you.
So, but here's the problem is, we look back at the precedent of what we've done in the past, and we are a quasi judicial board. And our options here are to dismiss or to refer this to the prosecutor's office for violation of election law. And there are some things in between that we can do. Typically, sometimes we can ask people to apologize and make formal apologies and do things along those lines, which I think are always good ideas. But if we refer something like this to the prosecutor's office, I fear that we are going down a partisan path, that what we're going to end up doing is we're going to lose our credibility with the prosecutor's office. You had a potential violation of election law that was corrected, and you had two people who had a rude interaction between them. Okay, that is not intimidation. That is not preventing somebody from doing their job. And we start referring things like that. Well, I'm going to tell you, we're going to refer everything to the prosecutor's office over the next couple of years, because we see these kinds of situations all the time, Mr. Chairman, and you know that as well as I do.
if I can add to that just a small bit. So in an odd event, I read everything in the agenda and everything before we got here and over the last couple of days. I can tell you, before I came to this meeting, I didn't hear the word obstruction or interference with election worker one time. I came here today. She came here to testify as to, and they came here to defend an electioneering complaint. Now I'm reading the obstruction statute while I sit here.
May I make a,
I want to say we had a discussion. Yeah,
We might have mentioned it, but in these materials today, one of the item number 7 in my agenda is the electioneering statute. The obstruction statute is not here. What would lead me to believe I was here to hear that today? I think if you're going to defend yourself from a charge, you ought to know what that charge is.
may I speak on behalf of my client?
I just want to see if there are any more board, Michelle,
Well,
we're gonna
Michelle's
hold on,
got her hand
Michelle,
up
hold
over
on.
there, and I
One
see
second,
that.
Michelle. So, are there any other board comments on this? I want to just state for the record, I thought we did talk about obstruction at the last meeting. I'd have to look at the minutes to get to the exact spot.
I mean, I
But-
think talking about it and actually being charged with it and defending from it are different things. Like, I don't want to, not that this is a trial in any, way, shape or form.
But-
I don't want to go into court defending a RICO case and find out we got mail fraud on Thursday.
Right, and that's why if it gets referred to the prosecutor would make the charges and then they defend it there.
Make one point.
Mr. Tolbert.
So if you look at the minutes of March 18th, 2025, page 17, line 16, it specifically references the obstruction statute.
Who references that? Is that you, Mr. Tolbert, or is that someone?
Yeah, I referenced it.
Mr. Tolbert, maybe you should have filed the complaint.
Well, I'm just.
He's not joking.
He wasn't there.
But I
Respectfully,
think this is, no, my point is I don't think this is a surprise. I think we talked about this always in two components, which
Well-
is electioneering and also
I think-
obstruction. And I'm not saying that you
So,
did it.
I-
All I'm just saying is that.
But I think that that's something you've brought up. I don't think the complaint talks about obstruction. And I think that you brought that up at the last meeting. I think you're bringing it up again today, and I don't think I agree with it on either occasion.
So here, I just want to read part of the transcript from our meeting that day. Mr. Mellon says, Mr. Chairman, right now I've got a person who filed the complaint who isn't here, but I've got an email from that person. So without the target of the complaint stating the facts aren't true, I have to make the assumption that every word is true, correct? And I said, I mean, we're not in a court of law. We don't have the strict evidentiary standards. We have a statement from someone and we do not have a response. I would agree with that. Mr. Mellon says, right. So I guess what my point is, I'm not a big fan of Mr. Alande ignoring our request to come in over this. We've talked about a referral to the prosecutors with the attorneys establishing a conversation with the prosecutor's office. We can sit down and talk with them. Ms. Brandenburg says, yeah. Mr. Mellon says, obviously, if there's truth to it, which I have to assume at this point, there's 100% truth to it, that this person was engaged in electioneering and voter intimidation with the statement that I am the police. So to me, our board is done with this. This needs to go to the prosecutor's office and we need to try to see if we can get this prosecuted for voter intimidation and electioneering.
And there's nothing, that statement is 100% accurate until we heard the testimony today.
Okay. Right. But I know the reason I read that was because it wasn't just a discussion of.
Well, that
No, but that was
was
based on a conversation with Mike.
But remember, you just said the words voter intimidation.
Yes.
I did.
That's a whole other
the
step.
transcript.
You didn't say obstruction. The argument's been made as obstruction.
You said that
So
when
we're
you
gonna
read it
throw
from
a
the
third-
transcript, but that says voter intimidation. That doesn't say obstruction. I'm looking at the board packet, which is what I'm supposed to study before I come to these things. It doesn't say that. I've got Attorney Viss here who's trying to defend his client, doesn't know he's charged with that. Or
He's not charged with anything right now.
But being brought in to speculate
as
as
a
to whether or
complaint.
not that's referable.
Yeah, I don't think, these things are pretty fluid at times when we have these hearings. It's not like we sit here and say, you've been, we're looking into this statute, we're looking into that statute. Our job as a board is to determine whether or not there's been a violation or if we believe that there is enough evidence to refer to the prosecutor because we believe there's been a violation of election law. We never have said like, we're only looking at this statute. I think generally the board has determined after the evidence, hey, what is out there? What may be violated?
Yeah,
Mr.
just for
Tobin.
the record, I want to make sure, again, I'm not advocating for one side or the other, but I think the context of the conversation stemmed around, talked about voter intimidation, and I think the reason this statute came up is because I wanted to really make sure that we were accurate in terms of the factual basis that was provided. That's the only reason why I mentioned the statute, because she was an election officer.
Yeah.
And it wasn't a voter that was being intimidated,
Right.
it was her.
Right.
And that's why I threw that out. For
And I just want to mention this to Mr. Mellon, or to Mr. Mellon's point, is like the electioneering, and Ms. Brandenburg pointed this out, the electioneering statute doesn't require a knowing element. However, I think to Ms. Brandenburg's point also, and Mr. Mellon's point, in practice, we have been very understanding of situations where, were you told what to do? Did you know about this? I mean, I can, even today, I think the practice that Ms. Jost has put forth and what she did that day is probably what we want to see our election workers do. We don't want to have people hold out a line and say, I want the sheriff to come down here and arrest you for electioneering because you're in the chute with the shirt on, whatever candidate it is. And so I really do understand that point of it. And I wouldn't sit here and say, oh, well, the letter of the law says he was electioneering because he had that shirt on. He had a shirt on of a candidate in that shoot. And if I was just real rigid and I'd say, oh, well, that's electioneering, it's referring to the prosecutor. I think we've done a very good job of this board on giving people an opportunity to, number one, defend themselves. Number two, we've done a very good job of this board in taking testimony in and understanding what the issues are. But I don't think we've been so rigid where we say, oh, this is what the complaint says, we have to stick to this statute. And so I appreciate the fact that Mr. Tolbert has brought up this other potential situation and statute so that we can look at it and discuss it. I feel that as far as the electioneering goes, I'm with you. I think he ended up complying, whether or not I believe the fact that he didn't know that Ms. Justice was an election officer. I'm not sure I do believe that, but I do understand that he did, when confronted with his neighbor, who also was an election worker, he complied. What was that conversation? We don't know. It's all hearsay. We're guessing. We're taking and we're weighing the credibility of the witnesses in that regard. So I'm fine with the fact that I don't believe he was electioneering, at least even though he might have been technically violating the statute, because I think I know what this board has done in the past. The real issue I have is with the treatment of a election worker on that day, and whether or not that amounts to interference or obstruction. And that's where I'm focused.
Can I ask one more question, just so
Mr. Reed.
it's clear for the record? We said that we've kind of agreed that electioneering doesn't have a knowing component to it. I think it does.
Okay, I was just going by what Mr.
It doesn't,
Brickman. As I read it, I don't read it saying.
I'm
no.
looking at- I'm looking
I don't think there's anybody that disagrees with the fact that the electioneering is not an issue.
Can we not, I mean, but can we just not talk over each other for a second?
Sure, Mr. Reed.
314, 316 C. A person who knowingly does any electioneering on election day within the polls or the shoe.
Oh, no, they're talking about A, which is.
That's where I was looking at.
Understood. Okay. I just want to make sure that we're not dismissing that. Just want to make sure we're not dismissing that component. That's.
I agree.
I'm going to call, Mr. Chairman, I don't know if it matters, but well, Michelle's got some.
I think we're gonna,
She's really had her hand up for a long time.
I don't know that both Jess and Michelle want to add something to this, but I don't know that the staff should be tested.
I'm going to call for the question, Mr. Chairman. We got a motion. and a second.
motion call for the vote. Wait, and I want to be real clear here because the motion, my understanding of the motion, Mr. Mellon, please feel free to rephrase it if I'm incorrect here, but I want to make sure the board understands. Your motion was that you do not believe you want to dismiss the complaint in its entirety based on the fact that there was no electioneering.
Based on the fact there was no electioneering, and I also believe that there was no vote or.
He's
election
asking you what
worker
your motion
intimidation.
was.
Yes.
Your motion was about the electioneering. Let's get through that one first. I think that's what it was.
I'm dismissing the complaint in its entirety.
That was the motion.
That's the motion. That's my motion, is to dismiss the complaint in its entirety.
Okay. We will have, discussion is ended. There's been a call for the vote. I'll entertain the call for the vote. Michelle, roll call, please.
Reed,
Yes.
Ellen,
Yes.
No,
Cavalier,
No,
Swinton.
No. Motion fails.
I'd like to make a motion.
We still have a complaint out there.
I'd like to make a motion to dismiss the complaint as far as the electioneering law violation is concerned.
We have a motion. We have a second.
second.
We have a second by Clerk Brown, motion by Mr. Reed. Any discussion on that? So we have the motion is to dismiss the complaint as it relates to electioneering. All right, roll call.
Reed,
Yes.
Ellen,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes,
Claire Reed,
hi.
Homestead.
Yes, motion carries. Is there any other motion?
so Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion regarding IC code 314-3 for obstruction and interference with an election officer.
And what's your motion, Mr. Clerk Brown?
Based on that IC code, obstruction and interference,
So what do you want to do with that? Miss?
that's my motion.
To refer to the prosecutor?
Has to be referred.
All right, so we have a motion by Clerk Brown on IC 3-15-3-4,
Yeah.
obstruction of, or I'm sorry, 3-14-3-4 obstruction of interference with or injury of election officer or voter to refer to the prosecutor. All right, discussion on this. Oh, I'm sorry.
I
Is there
don't have a second, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Mellon. Is there a second? Second by Ms. Candelaria Reardon. Discussion.
Well, Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Mellon.
no, this is, Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry.
Mellon.
This will be a fundamental change in every precedent that we've ever had on this board. If we're going to say that an argument between two individuals, even though I don't think it's warranted, I think it was a terrible thing that took place, is obstruction, then Mr. Chairman, I'm going to be filing a complaint about you every election. I'm going to be filing a complaint about Mr. Brown, Mr. Reed, Ms. Candelaria Reardon, because we argue all the time. There's discussion that takes place, and that does not prevent me or you from doing our jobs. And if we're going to say that we're at a point now where any disagreement that takes place in the polling place is now obstructed, well, that's good luck with that, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, at
Thank you,
what
Mr.
point do we
Mellon.
stop taking testimony from everybody?
We're on discussion.
Yeah.
And I do appreciate either Ms. Brandenburg or Ms. October. As long as it's just, I want to keep it to, legal. Yeah.
I do appreciate Mr. Mellon's comment about precedent. And the only reason I brought up the statute is because we talked about it. I do understand that there's an issue with whether or not there's evidence offered today that shows whether or not there was knowingly obstruction or knowingly interference. And I know in the past, this board has looked at that element very, very closely in terms of deciding whether or not to move forward and refer to the prosecutor. So I kept copious notes. I do appreciate that element is very weak, but I threw it out for the board's consideration.
Ms. Brandenburg, thank you.
I do want to raise that upon referral to the prosecutor for this particular violation, this would be a level 6 felony that could have serious consequences for this officer. What I heard in the testimony today, and yes, this is my opinion, is that I think we have a lovely poll worker who I feel for, and I think she did a good job that day. But we have an instance of rudeness and disagreement. I've seen situations come before this board in the past. Someone wearing sheriff memorabilia, arguing with poll worker. That was not referred. I think that precedent has to be considered and respected, particularly with regard to the knowing aspect of knowingly obstructing or interfering with an election officer. As the testimony came out today, Mr. Alande has stood by his statement that he did not know during the course of his disagreement that this individual was a poll worker. That's significant.
I'm working.
Mr. Chair.
Clerk Brown.
So based on that, my motion is generally based on the legal information that you give us. We do not go outside the legal realm. Make that clear. So at some point between you and our attorney, you need to come up with something that makes sense because the motion is based on the law. We do not go outside that. You brought a very good example. I respect that, but I'm also trying to work within the law in my motions.
Mr. Chairman, we had a deputy election commissioner that wore a sheriff's jacket that engaged in arguments with election workers. And we didn't refer that individual to the prosecutor. As a matter of fact, that individual continues to be a deputy election commissioner today. This is a real
That was
dangerous
that
precedent.
incident that was brought up with the sheriff's jacket guy, who for the moment shall remain, was one of the worst I have ever heard.
Yes. Screaming and yelling.
That was literally making it so people could not do their jobs.
Mr. Chairman.
This lady asked this man to take off this shirt. Claims he didn't know she worked there. Once he saw somebody who did work there, he complied. I don't know how that prevented her from doing her job that day. She did her job exactly how it was intended to be done. She saw a violation. She asked. He decided not to comply until she saw somebody he knew. I don't know how that stopped her from performing her duties as an inspector. I have no idea. I don't think there's any evidence to show she was unable to do her job that day.
So
That's the cornerstone of obstruction.
I appreciate that, Mr. Reed. Thank you. I want to ask the board, because Mr. Viss has been waiting patiently, as is Ms. Justice. I don't want to necessarily deny them the opportunity, but I also want to make sure that it would be out of order. So I just want to ask the board if anyone has an objection to hear from the parties before we take the vote.
I think the way that this complaint has morphed from one thing into another, I think they absolutely should have the right to speak.
All right, so Ms. Justice, you as the complainant, you've been very patient in sitting there, and I appreciate that. I'm going to give you the opportunity to address the board and say anything that you'd like to say based on what you've heard in our discussion regarding, your complaint. If you'd like.
I want to know if this happened again, should I not report it? Because I just feel like all of this, with sounding like nothing, I just want to be done with it. Want to get back to work and not have to think about this. If I were to work another election, have this happen and report the behavior, is the same thing gonna happen? Or should I not?
No,
report it?
Mr. Chairman, if I could
Those
take a
are-
crack at
I
it, if
think
you're
it's a good
asking this
question.
board that question, I think there's a very good answer. No, you should absolutely report it because there was a potential for a violation of election law, which was electioneering, no question about that. And at the same time, there was rude behavior that should be addressed at this. And I think that we've got the parties here, and I'd like to think that we've made an impression upon him that this behavior shouldn't be tolerated in the future, and this behavior needs to change in society. So I think you did a tremendous job by reporting this, because this is exactly the thing that should be reported. Look at the feverish discussion that has taken place here today. I mean, and you're the cause of all that. So I think if you were to work at an election.
Maybe not the cause.
But
but-
she's not.
No, I mean, but you're the impetus of trying to make those corrections. I apologize, I misphrased that. But you're the impetus of trying to make that correction. So what I'm trying to say is that I think you should work as a poll worker again, and I think you should do the exact same thing if this exact same situation were to take place. And of course, there is a complaint tracking system in place. And if there were multiple complaints against another individual, then the situations of knowingly do come in and everything. But right now, the only issue that we're hung up on is this obstruction issue. And I would ask you a question. Did this prevent you from doing your job that day? I know that it was an upsetting moment, but did it prevent you from allowing people to work and to continue to vote and do the things that they needed to do on election day, besides the discomfort of it?
After the initial, probably hour after, everything else was fine.
So what about during that hour?
Just trying to figure out what I should do. Also trying to deal with all the problems with the voters, because there were many of those. Obviously, it was busy.
Yeah, I
So
think.
it was stressful. It was, I mean, I wasn't expecting to
No.
come across that
No, it certainly not.
day.
Yeah, I think I just want to be very clear to Ms. Justice and to any poll worker out there that, in my opinion, what happened that day is totally inappropriate, that you shouldn't have to endure any type of intimidation or dismissiveness or challenge to your authority, or someone trying to intimidate you because they happen to have a badge and think that they can throw their badge out and say, I'm the police, and that somehow bears some weight on your ability to do your job that day. I have a real big problem with that. Where I'm struggling is the legal part of this, because I don't think anybody on this board believes that you were treated fairly that day. I don't think anybody on this board believes that the behavior that was exhibited by an officer of the law, sworn officer of the law, who I can tell you that I personally don't want to get pulled over by. And it was inappropriate. It's bad. I don't think it's an example that we want our police officers to be held up to. But again, it's really the meat of this is the legal part of it. And so I just want you to understand that regardless of how this all ends up today, I want you to hear from this board and from me that we don't agree with what happened to you that day.
Well, if I can add to that,
Mr. Reed.
Chairman, just so you know.
Yeah.
Because of things like you bringing this complaint, for example. Michelle and formerly Leanne Angerman would see these things happen and they'd see poll workers getting upset and being treated poorly. The legislature, based on things they have said to the legislature, has increased these offenses from misdemeanors to felonies. So when things like this happen, levers move. Don't feel like you shouldn't bring a complaint or you shouldn't work at a poll. These sort of incidents move the lever. And one of the levers we should probably move is talking about people working in a polling place, identify themselves, be visible, things like that. I mean, what everything she was trained to do is exactly what she did. But maybe we need another component. I don't know.
Yeah,
We did the training. We told them, it's a heated election. We don't want you to be put in harm's way in any way, shape, or form. If something happens, this is what you do. If it continues to happen, call the election board. She did.
Exactly,
that.
yeah.
The election commissioner, we can call the police. When he identifies himself as the police, their standards kind of step in because you now alert us to your police. Then there's intimidation. You can tell she's definitely scared. I think this has been.
Mr. Chairman.
All right, let me, yeah, okay.
Yeah,
Michelle is testifying that there's intimidation.
Jessica, did you want to say anything? I know you
I
really-
wish you guys wouldn't do that.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
I just wanted to tell you, when we didn't have a code book, that I did have the electioneering thing.
Thank you. All right,
Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Candelaria Reardon.
Yeah, I think that, absolutely she did the right thing. I think you should, if you work another election, continue to report because, I believe that whether this was intimidation or obstruction according to the statute or not, first of all, I believe it was. I believe that the badge was brought out in an effort to intimidate a poll worker, and I don't think that's okay. And I think another component that probably you should be aware of is that your position of authority and your gender in general is intimidating to somebody who is trying to do the right thing. I think that you have to keep that in mind. And I think that, should you lose your career over this? I don't know. I think that when we're talking about the statute and following the statute and precedent and all of those things, this is my first meeting. But I will say that I hope you've learned a lesson and your role as a police officer continues to evolve after 24 years and that you do owe her an apology, whether she wants one or not. I think that the way you behaved was intimidating to her and the way it impeded her from attending to other voters because either she was shook up or she was busy calling other people. I do believe that you made a huge mistake. And should you pay with your career? I don't know. According to the statute, we have to follow the statute. But I think that moving the needle forward, these complaints and these things don't feel like if it doesn't go to the prosecutor that you're not changing, you're not making change because you are making change and you are calling out people when they need to be called out. We struggle to get people to work the polls, and this is exactly why behavior like this. And I hope that you do learn a lesson, and you have learned a lesson. Thank you.
Mr. Biss, I'm going to give you the ability to have the last word here unless there's any comments based on your comments
Okay,
from the board.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is as well a first for me to be before you. I appreciate the time. As I reflected in 2008, I was in Ms. Justice's shoes and can appreciate the emotion, especially I think that election mirrored this past one. With that being said, I am going to object just for the record as to the second prong of this trial. I did not have notice that this would be an allegation. And one of the things that I appreciate that we've been talking about is what good can come out of this. I think for anyone to notice as to what they're being charged with is prudent. I think the second thing that we've all learned from this that needs to be incorporated into training, and it was for me in 2008, was that when you do approach somebody in a line, you identify your position. If we take a look at the statute, which has been cited here, it says that if you interfere with an election or an election worker, you can be charged with these felonies. Now, we'll go down the list. A member of a county board or elections. Well, if John Reed shows up in Cedar Lake and he walks in wearing his beautiful lavender shirt, and I'm in line, lilac, and he starts telling me that I need to take off a shirt that says, vote for Joe Lipon, which is a shirt I have at home from my youth when I help somebody run for office. But he doesn't identify that he's an election worker. And I just look at him in his lilac shirt. I'm not going to know. And I think it's already been stated by Mr. Tolbert that the evidence is weak. The evidence is not only weak, it's non-existent. And respectfully, Ms. Justice has indicated he didn't look up at her. She didn't identify herself. And on top of that, while she said he couldn't wear it, she didn't state the reason why. I think an integral part moving forward, and I understand that there's a disagreement as to the rudeness here. We've all learned from that. But I think an integral part moving forward is to reflect and educate those who are going to be in her position moving forward to do that. So when we take a look at the statute and it says with the intent to obstruct or interfere with an election worker, there's been nothing proved that he knew she was an election worker. He didn't interfere with her job because she was telling him to remove it, and he did do it. And from what I'm hearing on the board, there have been similar other instances where you have deduced that that wasn't interference. So to do it now, I'm starting to question what is the motive as to what we're doing here. I agree with,
Because it's a Republican police officer.
well, and when you say it's a.
I'm gonna call that out of
Well,
order.
you can do that, but
I'm gonna call
I've
that.
got everyone
If you,
testifying as to what
if you
this
think
man
that
did.
if you think if you don't think I'm carefully weighing this, and you're implying that my vote is because of what this gentleman's job and partisanship is, I disagree with that. I find that to be.
Then I want John Breezick back in here.
You can call him back in.
So, Mr. Chairman, the law states with the intent to obstruct or interfere knowingly or intentionally. And if the petitioner herself indicates he didn't know who she was and didn't look at her, and she never identified, and the respondent has identified he wasn't aware until he was told by a different poll worker, then you don't have knowingly. All we have is holding my client to the standard of being a police officer. As anybody who knows me when I talk with police officers, is I like to cite Paul Harvey. Paul Harvey has a great 3.5-minute quote that we should all take a look at this afternoon. We expect a police officer to be a saint 24 hours a day. But as Paul Harvey also identifies, there can be moments where they can be sinners, where they can lose their temper. And my challenge and my question to you is this 20 seconds that we've been discussing, which my client has apologized for. Are we going to say he was intentionally hell-bent on interfering with the election, Ms. Justice? I think he wants to take back those moments and wish he would have looked her in the eye. But to say that he intentionally interfered with her, I don't think that has been shown at all. That's actually been acknowledged by other counsel that's been testifying here earlier today, Mr. Tolbert, that's weak, if anything. So I'd like to leave you with that. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Viss. Any questions of Mr. Viss? Based on his comments.
Mr. Chair,
I'm sorry, Clerk Brown.
the reason why the motion was put out is based on the IC code. As you know, as a board, we've always tried to be fair no matter regardless what party. And as long as I've been on this board, I've never heard anyone say that. And so I guess Mr. Reed is very passionate today. But we're trying to work within the law itself. So what I would prefer, we defer this for the next meeting so we can get some more information because.
Mr. Chairman.
Excuse me.
Let me let Clerk Brown finish.
Because there is going to be a vote on this matter. But we're not going to go back and forth because you feel one way and because the law that I understand is not, we need to have a common ground on the decision. You can bring up other cases all you want to. The reality is this case is different from the other case.
So Clerk Brown, if I understand you right, you're asking that this board take the matter under advisement.
Yes.
All right, so there's a motion on the floor to take this matter under advisement. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Reed, motion by Clerk Brown. All those in favor of taking this matter under advisement, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. I'm sorry, Mr. Thank you. Motion carries 4-1. So just so the parties know, Ms. Justice, I know you are working out of state. You do not have to come back. All right, you do not have to come back. You are welcome to come back if you'd like. Same thing to Mr. Viss, you're welcome to come back when the board decides. And Ms. Rolande, you don't have to come back. It's you're welcome, right? It's a public meeting. But I don't want you to feel like you have to. If you don't want to, the board will make a decision in the future, it sounds like. All right, I want to thank both parties.
So I
Thank Mr. Viss for coming. Ms. Justice, I want to thank you for your service to the county and to the state and to the country for working as a election officer. Mr. Rolande, I want to thank you for your service to people at Cedar Lake as a police officer. Mr. Viss.
Just recognizing that this may need an appeal, I also want to preserve for the record an objection that there was a significant amount of conversation amongst the tribunal. I don't know if it was reflected with our court reporter here, but for the record, I am objecting to those conversations not being reflected actively on the record, and I'd be remiss as an attorney for my client if I didn't do that. So for the record, I want to put that out there.
Noted.
Thank you.
All right, I think we're, this matter is concluded. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, man.
We'll show it deferred and under advisement.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Siri.
Pops in. Shut up.
You didn't want to take any testimony from anybody in the audience? I mean, we got everybody's input.
Mike was saying, so
I wanted
had my
Mike
hand
mad.
up for a long time. I didn't want Michelle to not be able to speak.
Staff can't testify.
Now my votes are all depending on what party and job you have. So, all right, here we
I
are.
understand.
Oh, look, hey, I just.
There's no other old business. Thank you, Mr.
We
Reed. There's
took
no
one
other
out
old,
of- we took
there's
one
no other
totally
old
out of
business.
context.
We'll wait for a Democratic fireman to come up. and
I
see how
gotcha.
the votes go. All right, that's okay. Jessica, yes. Is it okay if Jessica speaks? Yes, I'm sorry. For the record, the Clerk Brown made a motion to defer, I'm sorry, to take the matter under advisement. Mr. Reed seconded it. And the motion carried 4-1.
4-1, one abstention.
No, one
No,
objection.
no, I got it. One
One objection.
no.
I'm sorry.
One no. All right, there is I don't see any other old business for the board. The next matter of new business is CFA matters. And I do see, I thought I saw Lori here and I don't see what Nita, no. Kelly, oh, all right. We have Kelly and Lori here. All right, so CFA matters, we have DEL CFA 2024 Annual Committee Reports. It's under tab 5. And we have it in front of us. Lori, do you want to set the record for us on what we have here? Delinquent 2024 annual reports.
That's right. Delinquent 2024 annual reports for regular party committees.
Why do I have October?
All right, and would you like the board to consider the two up front first, or did you want to just have the board impose the recommended fines and waivers as presented?
No, mine's still on. I don't know what happened there.
Really?
And these are your recommendations. All right, is anybody here from either the Gary Republican Central Committee, the Munster Democratic Precinct Organization, Maryville Ross Township Democratic Precinct Organization, Cedar Lake, Hanover, I know you guys are here, or the Winfield Township Democratic Precinct Organization? Just Cedar Lake's here? All right, why don't we take you guys first since you're here? And if you could come up and identify yourself, I know you've been here the last couple of meetings. Right over here is fine. Just for the record, this is the Cedar Lake Hanover Democratic Precinct Organization, 45-12535. It is under the never received category. Yes, sir. Your name and your position.
Jeff Beal, and I'm the chairman of the precinct organization, Cedar Lake.
All right, go ahead.
First of all, I'd just like to apologize for the report was not filed. But I do have evidence that it was filed on 1/10/25. It was faxed to the commission here.
Okay.
And then it's also been emailed. We have it here also.
Yeah, you want to take a look at it? Yeah. Lori, do you have any record of those dates? Have it been received? Attachments.
I'm happy to check the files. We may have made a mistake and you can.
To see it, it says to CFA at Lake County at 10:32 a.m. That says April 15th.
Well, we had to resend it again
Oh, you
today.
had to resend it now?
Well, we had to resend it because you said you didn't get it, so.
But Jim,
Well, we said we didn't get it a long time ago.
We have to come in next time on Saturday.
Mr. Beal, do you have anything that shows you sent it on the 10th of January?
We have a confirmation.
See, she's in a hospital.
Okay.
Quite a long time.
Who is that when you say she?
Haskell, she's our treasurer.
Okay.
So when it was said, when I tried to get hold of her, she had to get out of bed, go to a file, try to get this. So she faxed us what she filed on 1/10/25. So she emailed it to us that she had filed it then. And then she just wanted us to see what it was she filed, so.
But do you have any evidence that she did that?
Is it signed on the 10th or is it, what's the date of the, what's
That's
the
a
date
good
of the
question. I'm not really good with this, I'm gonna be honest.
You're doing good.
Yeah, no stress.
And I'm sorry, while you're looking, would you mind just
Say my name. I'm sorry,
Yes.
Mary Joan Dixon, Dickson,
in your position?
Cedar Lake 2, precinct.
All right. And do you have a position in the organization?
No.
Okay, just precinct. Got it? That's okay. It's important. We appreciate that.
Okay, I can't-
Precinct committeeman is a person in the organization, I always believe.
That's
Maybe
true.
you don't value them like I do.
I meant as a part of the committee.
I can't get it to.
He was bad.
That's okay. Do you believe you filed that on January 10th?
Yes.
Okay. Or you need time to check into this?
Check into it, if we could be to next month.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd be happy to do that.
All right, so looks like we want to keep you out of having to pay us a fine if we can. So if you don't mind, Lori, I'm sure we'll be in touch with you. You know how to get hold of Mr. Beal. Okay. So Lori will be in touch with you and I'm sure she'll update us and let you know whether she thinks you need to come back.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Mellon.
Can I make a motion to defer this to the next meeting? But can I also put a caveat on there that if we do find that we were in error on that,
Yep.
and staff has the authority to correct the error as appropriate?
I think
Based
that's,
on-
I think that's fair. So.
So they don't, so we don't have to drag you back in if there is an error.
Motion to defer with the caveat that they may not have to come back if Lori figures out that it was our error. All right. Second by Clerk Brown, motion by Mr. Mellon.
Thanks, sir.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion's deferred, motion carries and it is deferred. Thank you, Mr. Beal. Thank you for coming. All right, now, anybody else here as to the other parties I listed? Okay, seeing none, is there a motion to waive and or impose the recommended fine as presented?
You can motion.
I move we waive the fines
Pause.
listed in,
Waive and
oh,
impose.
and
So,
that have been imposed, but which one?
Mr. Chairman.
Maybe the motion should be to accept the staff
Accept the
recommendation.
staff
Right,
recommendation.
okay.
I'm sorry.
All right, there you go. Accept the staff recommendations.
Thank you.
Is the motion.
We have a motion to accept the staff recommendations.
I'll
as
second that,
presented.
Mr. Chairman.
Second by Mr. Mellon, motion by Ms. Candelaria Reardon. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. All right,
Wait, Mr. Chairman, just,
Mr.
I'm sorry
Miller.
for clarification point, that taking the staff recommendations,
except for Cedar Lake.
except Cedar Lake, right?
Yeah.
That
All
was,
right.
that was the motion.
That was great.
Yeah.
Good.
The Winfield one because they have not factored in for that. So the recommendation, last week.
Yes, right.
$300 is not accepted, that's setting $1,000 fine. I will, just as a side note, I don't know, share notification, we have a county meeting, I believe he moved out of the county.
Right.
So I don't know.
So they may have to do a reorganization, may take a little time. Well, and I apologize for just having a conversation, Mr. Chairman, but, yeah, and the goal would be to impose that $1,000 fine, and then once they turn in that report, then they're waived back to the recommended fine.
So do we, Ms. Brandenburg, maybe this is a question for you, and this is a technicality that we just probably want to make sure Ms. Candelaria Reardon understands. A couple meetings ago, we were told that we needed to make a motion to impose the fine and then make a motion to reduce it to the recommended.
And I believe the language was in there for some justice.
Yeah, it's unfair or whatever.
Essentially, yes.
So do we need to
Yes.
do that properly and do that? Okay, so. Yeah, I think let Mr. Mellon make the first motion regarding imposition, and then you can make your motion about recommendations. Mr. Mellon, please make that motion.
Okay, so we're gonna handle these separately and, under the never received category, item, Winfield Township Democratic Precinct Organization, I make a motion to charge $1,000 fine for the, never receiving of their, report.
Question for council, do we have to do them all?
Well-
No, Winfield wasn't deferred. Can we take them all
Cedar Lake
together?
was deferred.
I think you could make a single motion,
Yeah.
ask to all of them to implement
The fine and then-
statutory fine, and then you
Yeah.
would make a motion to reduce
All
accordingly.
right, so Mr. Mellon.
Okay, yeah,
make
so-
a motion.
Yeah, so I'll make a motion to implement the maximum civil penalty under the statute
All right,
for each of these,
all right.
with the
Separate-
exception of Cedar Lake, which has been handled separately.
All right. Then we're gonna have a second. Second, we have a motion by Mr. Mellon to impose the maximum civil penalties under the statute, second by Ms. Candelaria Reardon. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Ms. Candelaria Reardon.
I make a motion to accept the staff recommendations with regard to the never received.
All.
All of them, okay.
Well, with the exception of
With the
Cedar Lake.
exception of Cedar Lake,
Whitfield Township and Cedar Lake.
Whitfield Township and Cedar Lake.
All right, and that because the imposition of that fine would be or
Unduly just.
unduly burdensome and unjust, correct?
Correct.
All
That's
right.
the motion.
Thank you. Any discussion on that? Hearing none, all those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries unanimously. All right, thank you, Lori. Now we have Mr. Clerk Brown did, yes. Motion by Ms. Candelaria Reardon, seconded by Clerk Brown. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I don't think, he's very quiet. He's very diminutive.
He doesn't see that.
I was doing an AI more.
Yeah, moment. All right.
Yeah.
Oh,
We
the next
call
matter,
them whispers.
next matter before the board is CFA matter Arthur Santos.
What is this?
Mr. Santos is not here in the room today. He did ask to be put on the agenda for your consideration in reducing his $1,000 imposed fine for his previous delinquency. However, he's not here.
Okay. Well,
All right, so
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to defer to a future meeting.
I have a motion to defer. Is there a second? Second. Second by Mr. Reed's, motion by Mr. Mellon to defer Mr. Santos's CFA matter to a future meeting when he is advised to show up or else. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. 7 and 8 is the legal notice of election and early voting published. And I think we have.
Do we make a
copies of that.
motion to make sure those stay in the record? Motion to accept the legal notices from the Times and the Post concerning the referendum.
All right, we have a motion to accept. Second by Ms. Candelaria Reardon, motion by Mr. Reed. Any discussion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries. That takes us to the VSTOP audit update. I can indicate to the board that we have before us a resolution that are we considering this? All right. Doesn't have a number on it, but I'm sure we will number it at some point. Do we know what number? That's okay.
In your packet has the correction.
I've got it. It's 2025-08.
Thank you. Okay, we do have a number. Thank you. 2025-08 is entitled Resolution of the Lake County Election Board, and it relates to Lake County being determined that it would be appropriate for us to be a designation of as a post-election audit county by VSTOP or double VSTOP. Okay. Is there a motion to accept this? I'm sorry. Is there a motion to approve the resolution 25-08 as presented?
So move, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, motion by Mr. Mellon. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Candelaria Reardon. Any discussion? I just want to thank both Michelle and Jessica for their work on this. I think it's great that we're going to be an audit county, and I think it again shows the state that Lake County is doing the right thing in this. So I appreciate that. All right. Any other discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Resolution 25-08 is passed. County authorization is the next matter of new business. Remove entry from SBRS. Jessica or Michelle? Jessica.
What was someone ended up putting all question marks in for all of the
resolution.
authorization to remove that.
And you'd like us to approve it?
Yes.
All right. Motion
Okay.
to approve?
Motion to approve. Mr.
Motion approved by.
Second it.
Second by Mr. Mellon. All those in favor of approving the remove entry from SBRS signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Is there any other new business? Any correspondence? Council report, Ms. Brandenburg. Mr. Tolbert. All right. Thank you as always for your legal counsel, especially today.
Well,
I appreciate it. I appreciate it.
I don't want you to feel bad.
Isn't this country based on vigorous debate?
Yeah.
Yes.
Last time I checked.
Yes.
I love a vigorous debate.
Yeah.
I love figures.
Bunch of big babies out there now.
You-
Mike got his feelings
You
hurt.
and
Like,
I all wore our lilac today in solidarity.
No, that's okay. It's better it's not. It's one advantage than I have an AI. All right. Are there any purchase orders? There are. I'll entertain a motion to approve the purchase orders as presented.
So move.
Second.
Is there any discussion on the purchase order?
One question, the $100 per, it says for the iPads, from No Ink, that's $58,000. Is that the maintenance contract or is that a license of some kind? Okay, and that's part of the contract we're, okay.
And we're going to only activate what we need.
I guess that's 500 maybe iPads. I didn't know if that number was right. Okay, that's all I have.
All right, thank you. We have a motion and a second on approving the purchase orders. All those in favor of approving them as presented, signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries. Next meeting of this board is May 3rd, 2025. That's a Tuesday, I think.
Saturday.
Oh, that is Inspector Saturday. You're right. I could just read it right there. Inspector Saturday. May 3rd, 2025, 10 a.m. in the Commissioner's courtroom right here. Is there any public comment?
The board meeting will be here, and then for our training, because this is such a small election, we will be 49. We will be doing the training session down in the auditorium, and that's where we'll be releasing the materials off of. It's all right down there. It's won't take time to go back and forth in the building, ladies. But bring the materials to go.
What happened to the voice? You okay? Got a little sick? Got a little bug?
That's weird. Springtime. All right, any other public comment?
You've been doing too much of Kevin's cocaine.
Hearing none. I didn't
Plenty to go.
say, I didn't say I used it. I just possessed it.
He's got a bunch of it.
Got a lot of it. Apparently, big bad.
That's what you the hair on.
There being no further public comment, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion, second. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. We are adjourned at 12:03.